Alright, so it's 2021. New year, new reviews, new shows to talk about. For this year, I decided to cover a series that I feel gets a bit of a bad rep in terms of Nickelodeon and entertainment in general. And if you've read the title and seen the thumbnail, then you would know that for 2021, I'm reviewing Legend of Korra.
Yeah, that's great and all, but didn't Legend of Korra suck?
Doesn't Legend of Korra suck?
Didn't Legend of Korra suck?
But geek, Korra fucking sucks.
NickToons, before you embarrass yourself any further, I would like to remind you of something. Legend of Korra sucked ass. Shut up!
In all seriousness though, I feel like Korra is a series that is a large step up for the Avatar franchise, but it seems to have fans the most divided, with half of them saying that it's a disgrace to the franchise and how it features no redeeming qualities whatsoever. A mentality which has also been pushed as time has gone on, with people posting almost feature-length videos just nitpicking the crap out of each second of the series. This I feel is a part of the community which gives the series its negative reputation amongst fellow cartoon fans. But there exists another half claiming that it's an absolutely perfect series that can't be criticized in any way, shape or form. I myself would prefer the middle ground. Korra itself is actually one of my favorite series. I cherish it a lot, but at the same time, there are many aspects of each season that could always be critiqued, much like how many other shows and series that I love aren't devoid of criticism. That being said, I also represent an opinion which could potentially make this video one of the most controversial, and just know that this is all my opinion, and it's not made to influence anyone in any way, shape or form, and you might not totally agree with me. So here it goes. I actually prefer Legend of Korra over Avatar: Last Airbender. Now look, I love Last Airbender. I think it's one of the best series in television history, and should always be remembered fondly. But in terms of plot, characters, and villains, I actually enjoy Legend of Korra a lot more. Well, can't wait for the dislikes on this video. Before the actual review, let's discuss some history. Created by Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, the series was originally intended to be a miniseries that chronicles the adventures of the latest incarnation of the Avatar cycle, Korra, including the events of what happens while Korra is in Republic City and her fight against Amon and his army of equalists. A lot of you may know that Nickelodeon changed the order from a miniseries to a full 4 seasons. This would later go on to affect the series in negative ways, but that's for a later part of the review. With some of the series' origins out of the way, let's get on to the series itself, pointing out both the good, the bad, and everything in between. This is Legend of Korra, better than you think.
You gotta deal with it!
Welcome to Republic City. Let your mind and your spirit be free.
Man, I got a good feeling. There's something special about her. I know it.
The revolution has begun!
But we're still a team! The new Team Avatar! We got your back, Korra. And we can save the city together.
Now season 1 is a season I consider pretty good when compared to the rest of the series. It's not perfect by any means, and there are a few inconsistencies in the story, and it does have a few aspects that keep it from being the best in my opinion, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. In terms of the series, Korra personality-wise serves as Aang's polar opposite. Instead of being a calm, wide-eyed character that tries to befriend everyone, Korra is a more hot-headed and headstrong protagonist, never too afraid to start a fight when given the circumstance, making for pretty fun, interesting dynamics whenever she interacts with any number of the supporting cast. And honestly, it was pretty entertaining watching her antics during her time in Republic City, taking down triads, becoming a pro bender, and even forming a new Team Avatar. Speaking of which, the rest of Team Avatar is pretty enjoyable as well, with all of them bringing their own unique brand of both camaraderie and chemistry for this season going forward. Mako and Bolin, the fabulous Bending brothers, are a pretty likable pair of characters, both of which are a perfect balance of comedic and serious, but also share a lot of the spotlight alongside Korra, making them just as developed. It kind of feels like in whatever category one lacks in, the other one makes up for it, and I like that. Asami, another member of Team Avatar, is a character I feel is a bit underplayed in the first season. Although she isn't utilized as much in terms of storytelling during season 1, she had a really entertaining arc that I at least enjoyed, with her realizing her father isn't the wise, honest man she perceived him to be, and having to stop him from helping Amon with more dangerous machinery. As well as Team Avatar themselves, we also have Tenzin, Korra's master and who might just be the best character in this season next to Bolin. J.K. Simmons gives an impeccable voice performance in this role. That being said, while his interactions with Korra aren't the best in my opinion, I actually enjoyed his interactions with Lin Beifong and his family. There are a few scenes within the season, as well as the rest of the series, I found to be pretty heartwarming and chuckle-worthy at times. Even the Airbender kids bring a little bit of personality in the scenes they're in. Not as much as later seasons, but their inclusions are appreciated.
You must promise me that your teenage years won't be like this.
I will make no such promises.
But no series would be as interesting without its villains. Each season includes a different and diverse antagonist, each with varying levels of quality. For this season, Amon takes the helm as the main threat. Perceived as a non-bending tyrant, he runs an underground force of non-benders called the Equalists, an organization hell-bent on making the world a peaceful place for both benders and non-benders by way of Amon's secret ability to take away people's bending. Honestly, Amon seems like one of the most threatening antagonists in terms of Korra. Throughout the season, he shows himself to be cold and calculating in every scene he appears in. It's almost like he's always one step ahead of Team Avatar, one being that never quite seems to be able to be taken down easily, making his defeat at the end of the series so much more satisfying in my opinion.
No, you don't!
Did you see what happened?
Besides Amon himself, I also enjoyed the escapades of another character you could technically consider a secondary antagonist for the season, TLOK. In the beginning, he shows himself to be a pretty straightforward, annoying authority figure, but as the season moves forward, we see that his motives are much more dire and evil, and he even has a pretty saddening backstory which presents his checkered past and relationship with Amon, which I won't spoil for newcomers to the series. That you'll have to figure out yourself. Honestly, the season ends up looking pretty good so far, with a well-established plot, unique characters, and a threatening antagonist. I don't see anything wrong with the first season of Korra at all.
I like Asami too. I don't know, things are complicated. I've been feeling really confused and
I almost forgot about this. I mentioned before that the first season isn't completely perfect, and there are quite a few flaws that are apparent even in its first watch. The biggest issue I have is the forced romantic triangle between Mako, Korra, and Asami. This was fine for me at first, but kept on popping up again and again as the season progressed. Remember how I said Bolin and Mako share a good chemistry? What I forgot to mention was that Bolin's the only character he shares a good chemistry with. The other two members are just there to form this dumb love arc, where Mako completely switches interests from one girl to another. Keep in mind that Mako, to me at least, is actually a pretty bland character as is, so having this love triangle just to stretch out a few scenes really drags the season down in my opinion. This is especially apparent in the second season, but I'll get into that later. Just know that if you're ever watching season 1, you might want to skip over these scenes, because they offer nothing new in terms of plot and are just filler. But anyways, with 12 episodes in its first season, I have to say my favorite episode would definitely have to be And the Winner Is. The action is a non-stop rush, the character interactions are on point, especially between Tenzin and Lin, and it genuinely represents the Equalists as a legitimate threat to Republic City. Just an overall great episode. In terms of my least favorite episodes, it definitely has to be The Spirit of Competition. By far one of the worst victim of the love triangle plot lines of the season. No matter how many times you view it, the episode distracts itself with this stupid romance triangle and ruins the subplot of the pro bending tournament. Pretty much the worst Legend of Korra has to offer with season 1. Overall, even with some bad qualities for this season, it isn't necessarily the worst thing out there. If you can ignore some of its setbacks, it's still a fun, action-filled watch that I still highly recommend you check out. On to season 2. Season 2 of Legend of Korra has to be subjectively the worst season of the entire series. Not only does it drop any and all of the previous character development that was made back in season 1, but it's also made the characters virtually unrecognizable from the more nuanced cast from before. My biggest issue is definitely with our main character Korra. Throughout the first half of the season, she acts completely out of line, going against her father and Tenzin with every scene they're in. She's way too lenient with the antagonist Unalaq and way too infuriated with her father. Honestly, seeing Korra's interactions with both of them just gave me the feeling of watching a completely different show entirely. None of the characters seem like themselves, and it doesn't help that her motivation completely changes when she realizes that Unalaq is actually evil. And even her interactions with the rest of Team Avatar, especially Mako, is just asinine. You really just feel sorry for him, because every scene he has with Korra just ends with the two arguing, and it just makes it so much more worse that they revive the crappy love triangle subplot from the first season, making the character interactions a heck of a lot worse. Just not enjoyable in the slightest.
So, what? Are you breaking up with me?
yeah, I guess I am.
You are made of stupid.
But enough with the main characters. What about this season's villain, Unalaq? Well, he's not that much of an improvement. Compared to Amon, he poses no real threat. I mean, he does, it just doesn't have the same impact. His role as this season's threat is just to literally play the part of an obstacle. That's right, he's not even threatening enough to be classified as an antagonist. He literally offers nothing new, and even his plans seem so cookie cutter. I can comfortably say that he's the worst villain in the entirety of Avatar.
Know your place, trash.
But out of everything in this season that's just terrible, is there anything that's positive? Anything at all?
me in the eye.
We got a deal!
Well, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to Sir Ignic Blackstone Varric, undoubtedly one of the best characters in the entire series. His different mannerisms and eccentricities are just its own realm of entertainment. Even when he's against Team Avatar, he's still so much fun to watch. Probably the biggest highlight in this season, if I'm being completely honest. In terms of episodes that I actually found good, they're few and far between. But thankfully, I managed to find an episode that I can, no contest, call my favorite episode in the entire series. That being the two-parter, The Beginnings. It focuses on the year-long journey of the first Avatar, Wan, as he attempts to stop Vaatu from taking over the world. Out of all the episodes, this episode I believe excels in its writing, animation, art quality, and especially its characters. Its watercolor background art is just so gorgeous to look at, and the final battle against Vaatu, I thought at least, was pretty well choreographed, and was a satisfying conclusion to Wan's journey as the first ever Avatar. On the opposite side of the spectrum, in terms of the worst episode I found this season, it's a bit more difficult, since most of the season, minus a few episodes I actually found enjoyable, are to blame for its mediocrity. It's honestly so bad that I don't even want to discuss it any further. All I can say is that every show has its stinkers, and season 2 was definitely Korra's. Season 3 is what I would like to call a return to form for Korra as a whole. After a whole season filled with nothing but nonsensical filler, it was great to get back into the groove of things and actually be shown a pretty exciting story. The story for this season focuses on Korra and the gang searching for new airbenders, while a rogue group of tyrants known as the Red Lotus tries to hunt Korra down. This season's strengths definitely lie in its world building. We become introduced to many different locations such as the metal city of Zaofu, and we even get reintroduced to the walled city of Ba Sing Se. Honestly, all of these locations make the show feel so much more massive and grand with each and every location. It makes it feel like way more of an adventure, and that we're just along for the ride.
Oh, the lower ring looks terrible.
Yeah, I can smell it from here. No wonder Dad left.
All the characters are pretty likable in this season for the most part. Yes, even Mako, although that might be mostly from the fact that they paired him with Bolin, which I probably think is for the best. Unlike season 2, the characters aren't just malicious jerks to each other, and there's an actual chemistry between each one of the main characters. Korra and Asami, Mako and Bolin, and even Lin and her sister Su Yin. The interactions feel a lot more natural in a way.
You are very muscular for a woman.
Thanks. You too?
What lovely young women. Mako, why aren't you dating any nice girls like them?
The main highlight for this season is the Red Lotus, this renegade group of criminals who are hell-bent on killing the Avatar and establishing a new age of quote-unquote freedom. Throughout the season, we see Zahir as this unstoppable being, taking down any number of enemies in his way. And when he's with the Red Lotus, they seem almost abnormal in a way, almost untouchable, superhuman even. I mean, in terms of Korra's antagonists, they're ranked pretty high for me, only because of the fact that they're the only antagonists who came close to actually ending the Avatar, and not to mention that their actions have long-term effects for the next season to come. But more on that later. Now, my favorite episode for this season would definitely be Venom of the Red Lotus. The episode drags you in with its action, drama, and intense moments. Some of the best and most defining moments for the series come from this episode, and it wasn't too afraid to take a risk and end the season with a sad ending rather than a good one, leaving the door open for the next season's story. But again, more on that later. As for negatively received episodes for me, I can't really point out any singular ones that I didn't enjoy. At the end of the day, with eye-catching action, amazing chemistry, and a grand scope, I have no doubt when I say Season 3 is definitely one of Korra's highest highs. Out of every season of Korra, Season 4 has to be my absolute favorite. Everything I love from the entire series is here. The non-stop action and well-written dialogue, the top-notch chemistry between characters, and even a very engaging story to boot. All of these factors make Season 4 the best the show has to offer in my opinion.
But it was kind of like old times. Except for the getting on each other's nerves part.
Actually,
That is like old times for me and Korra.
The season hits us hard with a 3-year time skip that details where the characters' lives have gone since the events of the season prior. Republic City's become a much bigger metropolis that's become intertwined with the spirit world. All the characters have changed in both personality and look. And speaking of characters, I do actually like the new dynamics they have for the season. Mako's this bodyguard for the disgustingly selfish Prince Wu. Asami's turned Future Industries into a booming company that develops railways and tech for the future. And Bolin's working alongside Kuvira in restoring the Earth Kingdom. And then we have Korra. Honestly, Korra's portrayal in this season is my absolute favorite. Ever since the events regarding the Red Lotus, she's been suffering from haunting visions and almost nightmarish flashbacks, forcing her to find her own path while also carrying her own trauma. And this is why I don't get why people complain about Korra as a series. I mean, there's some real emotional growth here. I mean, it's not like she gets over her trauma in one episode. This sticks around for almost the entirety of the season, and she even gets help from the person who actually harmed her in the first place. It really had me engaged throughout the entire story.
Well done, Korra.
The Avatar is back in business.
But every season has its antagonists, and for this season, we have my absolute favorite. Now, Kuvira is a villain in this series I don't see talked as much. Between Amon, Zahir, Unalaq, and Vatu, she's kinda on the lower end of the spectrum according to most Avatar fans. But I don't necessarily see this in my opinion. Behind the Red Lotus, Kuvira is my favorite villain. She's an unfeeling, brutal, and merciless dictator dead set on creating the Earth Empire and destroying anything or anyone in her way. The closest comparison I could make is a character like Sasuke Kiryu from Kill la Kill. I mean, think about it. Both are equally skilled fighters with an army on their side and believe in the cause they're fighting for, and both have what seem to be malicious intent but sort of have good intentions behind them. It really makes the season an absolute treat to watch. Honestly, there's a lot to enjoy in this season. The character interactions, like I mentioned before, are a real highlight. The best one in my opinion would definitely have to be the sort of B-plot for the season, focusing on Bolin and Varric discovering that Kuvira's intentions are much more extreme than they thought before. This side story offered a ton of laughs throughout the first half of the season and was a pretty great redemption arc for Varric that led to him becoming a better person, which, not gonna lie, I found somewhat wholesome. For my favorite episode for this season, it would definitely have to be Operation Beifong. The character interactions are strong during every moment, and the action never slowed down and always kept going. Plus, it was nice to see what Toph was like with her family. Just an overall quality episode.
At some point, you gotta leave it to the kids.
Not the best, but a close second. My least favorite episode of the season has to go to Remembrance. Not the worst offering from the series, but has to be the most boring. It's literally just a clip show with characters commenting over it. Nothing new here. Boring! Now, a lot of people like to dismiss the series' end because of the couple Korrasami. At the time, it was pretty big, being one of the first modern examples of LGBT relationships in media, but nowadays it's not that special. But honestly, I found it as a pretty sweet finale to the series. I've never seen these two as the be-all end-all couple in Legend of Korra. Rather, I saw them as a couple of people who discovered a significant connection to each other and are seeing how it goes. Honestly, a better way to view Korrasami if I'm being honest. At the end of the day, Korra has been a series that I've adored through its best qualities rather than its worst. In my eyes, it feels like a worthy successor to The Last Airbender. It just has the same amount of effort, engagement, and interaction as its predecessor. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some problems with it, but it's not necessarily a bad series in any way. And to think that it came out back around the time of other series like Adventure Time, Regular Show, Steven Universe, Star Vs, Loud House, and so many others is just confusing to me. And at least coming from me, it doesn't deserve as much hate as it gets. Won't you agree?
Get him!
Oh god.
Who do you think you are?
Why don't you come and find out?